Welcome to this episode of Health Reversion. You're here with Adrian, and in today's episode, we're going to be considering the characteristics of a blood type A individual. According to Diademo's research, blood type A's thrive on a vegetarian diet. So this is going to be great news if you're blood type A and you're already a vegetarian or a vegan. You're mostly going to be already complying with this protocol. There just might be a few little tips and strategies and modifications that might be needed. If you're on the standard meat and potato diet and you've just come across this information, then there might be some radical changes that you'd need to make if you wanted to try something like this. Type A's have a sensitive digestive tract and a tolerant immune system. So with that sensitive digestive tract, we're looking to have foods in their natural state or as close to their natural state as possible. Avoiding those processed foods, avoiding those food additives is going to help that digestive tract absorb the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, and all the good things from the foods that we are eating. Being biologically predisposed to heart disease and other illnesses such as cancer and diabetes, type A's are recommended by Diademo to follow that vegetarian diet that is primarily made up of foods that are in their natural state. So if you're going to be looking at eating processed foods, it's really important that you check the ingredients list to just make sure it doesn't have any of those hidden nasties, as I've mentioned in my matrix numbing agent episodes. In contrast to type O's who burn their meat for fuel, type A's can actually run into some issues with the regular consumption of meat, particularly the meats that are a lot denser and a lot fattier, such as beef, lamb. So they're an avoid, but when it comes to meat, if you're like, I still need to eat meat, I enjoy it, I do feel better on it, that's fine. There are neutral meats that are available on the protocol, and they're the white meats. So your chicken and your turkey, you can also have chicken eggs, they're in the neutral section as well. But again, the recommendation is to have them organic, lean, and obviously from pasture-raised areas. So we want to avoid the factory farms, we want to avoid the heavy grain-fed meats that are out there. Now the reason for this is Diademo observed in a range of type A's that they had quite low stomach acid levels. So just naturally, we seem to be predisposed to having low levels of stomach acidity. And so if we're having these really dense foods like the meat, even avocado, high-fat foods such as some of the nuts, we're putting a lot of stress and a lot of strain on the gallbladder there. And that needs to work overtime to release all of the bile, to really help the body break down those fats, which can be difficult. So as I mentioned before, if we're having these foods on a regular basis, we're having lots of meat, we're having lots of fat, we're probably going to be storing those foods as fat and gain weight rather than using them for the nutrients that they contain. It's also not good news when it comes to dairy products. Dairy products can inhibit nutrient metabolism and also increase the mucus production. So if you do eat dairy products and you realize or you recognize later that you do have increased levels of phlegm, then this could be the reason. It's not all bad news though. There are some dairy products in the neutral category. So when I say neutral, just to be clear on that, there are avoid foods, which Diademo recommends you should completely avoid. There are neutral, which aren't going to have too much of an impact as long as you don't have an overabundance of them. And then there are beneficial, which you can eat as much as you want of. So the dairy products that are in the neutral section are things like the cultured products like sour cream and yogurt. That doesn't mean that you can go and buy the really nice flavoured yogurt with vanilla pina colada flavour and all of that sort of thing. You're more better off sticking with the natural Greek yogurt with no additives or anything like that. Mozzarella cheese is also included in that, so if you had a really good quality sourdough base, you could put the vegetables that are beneficial for you on that, and you could top it off with some mozzarella cheese and still be adhering to this protocol. So that's some good news there. Beans, legumes, nuts and seeds can provide a good source of protein, but just be careful to check that avoid list at the end of this video in the description section, because there are quite a few lectins contained in these particular foods, and they should be avoided so that they don't have that adverse effect on your body. Breads, grains and cereals are favourable for type A's. Diatomo does recommend, if you can and if it is practical, for you to actually make these yourself. So making your own breads, biscuits, pastas, etc. And I know that can be quite time consuming and not necessarily practical for everybody, but I guess his message is that type A's just need to be really careful to have foods in their natural state, or as close to their natural state as possible. A final mention in relation to grains and cereals is just to do with gluten. Gluten isn't actually recommended across all the blood groups, but with type A's, according to Diatomo's research, there is levels of acidity that can build up if we have it in overabundance. So if I started my day off with some toast, and I had some biscuits at morning tea, and then I had some wraps at lunch, I'm really building up that wheat level, and it can be quite acidic for our systems. We have a naturally alkaline system, and when we have those acidic foods, it can just affect our energy levels. So just be cautious of that. You still can have wheat every now and then in small amounts, but just not too much over a consistent period. Most of the common vegetables, such as the green leafy vegetables, carrot, broccoli, these are all beneficial for type A's. And as I mentioned before, it's really a plant-based diet, a vegetarian diet. But do look out for some of the vegetables that do contain lectins, such as eggplant and potatoes. And have a look at the video on The Bloody Truth, which is the precursor to this video, which will explain more about how you might be able to reduce the number of lectins, or radically almost eliminate them, if you do certain preparation of those foods. So have a look into that. The preparation involves boiling, sometimes it involves baking, fermentation, etc. So it's not all bad news for potatoes and some of those vegetables that are on your avoid list, but you'll just need to prepare them in a manner that reduces the levels of lectins. Fruits are plentiful on the type A protocol, but again, just having a look at the avoid list, there are a few fruits to avoid, such as bananas, unfortunately. And being an A myself, and having a banana before a workout or before I go for a run or a cycle, it doesn't increase my performance. It doesn't make me feel good on the bike, unfortunately, even though bananas are such a nice food. That is a correlation that I have been able to identify through reading this book and also doing the experiment on myself to see what happens to my body. And a final couple of points of caution. The first point of caution is Diatomo strongly recommends that you consider avoiding some of the stimulatory beverages out there, such as coffee, and the depressants out there, such as alcohol. And the reason for that is because we've got that sensitive digestive system, we've got that sensitive digestive tract, and having these really harsh substances can play havoc on that and can leach minerals and vitamins, etc., from our body, and it's just overall not good for a type A system, because we are naturally predisposed to having high cortisol levels. So we're kind of almost always in a slightly stressed state. I'm not saying that type A's are erratic and crazy all the time, but we've got that naturally slightly higher cortisol level, and if you're going to have coffee and stimulants, you're just taking that cortisol level right up, and that can be problematic. It can break down muscle tissue really quickly. And in relation to the alcohol, it can really harm the digestive tract, and considering the digestive tract replaces itself every 2 to 3 days, if you're having alcohol on a regular basis, this can be problematic and pose issues for when the digestive tract replaces itself. So keep those things in mind. And finally, in relation to exercise, type A's will do best on calming exercise, such as hatha yoga or tai chi. You might like to do some swimming, some cycling, some gentle brisk walking. Gentle and brisk walking doesn't really go together, but brisk walking. So you're probably not going to enjoy, or you may only be able to do small bouts of the more intense exercise. So if you like your HIIT training, your high intensity interval training, if you like your weight sessions, that's fine. You'll still be able to do those things. It's not saying that you can't, but it's just saying to keep them short and sweet. So with your, for instance, gym sessions, if you're using weights, you just keep the session to 30, 40, 45 minutes at the sort of max. Sort of get in, get it done and get out, so that you're not increasing that cortisol level for too long, because it can take a while to rebalance down again. It can be catabolic to the muscles as well. So you think you're going in there to increase your muscle mass and doing hours in the gym, but in reality, you've got your cortisol levels right up and you're actually breaking down muscle mass to do the exercises. So I hope that hasn't been too much of a mouthful. I feel like I've been talking for a very long time here about the type A's, but because I am one, there was a few extra points that I wanted to cover there. If you didn't get anything out of this video, give it a thumbs down. If you did get something out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. In the meantime, I ask that you keep well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.